Hello everyone! Welcome to the first official video for Whump Wednesday. This was a request for AoFuta with number 1, under which was hiding accidentally hurt by a friend. Enjoy! Special thanks to my lovely patrons, you are keeping this channel going. One of the advantages of working on-site most of the time was definitely the fact they were usually working alongside their sister company, since, you know, the buildings had to be started on before they could lay the cables. And while it meant the site was pretty busy, Kenji wasn't complaining. As long as they got to share meal and water breaks with Aone, he could put up with the builders' constant shouting. He still vividly remembered how his mother warned him about working with one's partner, that there was nothing bad about taking a short break from each other during work hours. But so far, he couldn't see a single problem. Perhaps it was because they worked for a different company in the end, but he didn't feel any less excited about meeting Aune at work than at home. Besides, he liked to see Aune working. Aune's ever so impressive physique came in handy on the construction site, and Kenji had to hold back a lot not to openly drool over his boyfriend's muscles. At least he could throw it into his coworkers' faces. It was ultimately satisfying to hear them grumbling under their breaths about the unfairness whenever Aune came to call him over for their lunch break. At least up until a certain point. There were words he didn't want to hear, yet was unable to filter out. Words making all kinds of ugly feelings swirl in his chest. Not that he would ever admit it in front of Aune. The last thing he wanted was to look like a nasty egoist in his boyfriend's eyes, especially since nothing was certain in the future. Aune had seen him at his worst, but there was no reason to add to the already surely tainted picture. You are frowning again. Kenji blinked rapidly as Aune's deep voice stored the train of thoughts he was riding. It took him a bit to fully return to reality and to realize they were just about to have their lunch. He sighed and unwrapped the bento box so far only laid on his lap, feeling Aune watching him intently like a hawk. It wasn't unpleasant in any way. He was already used to Aune watching his every movement after all, but for some reason he couldn't keep still under his gaze that day. I'm going over the plans in my head. Liar. He flinched in surprise when Aune leaned closer and rubbed his thumb over the space between his eyebrows as if he was flattening a crease on his shirt. You never frowned so much about work. Genji's heart skipped a beat, light jolts running through his skin when Aone touched him. But while the touch was an unbelievably gentle one, he knew there was an unspoken question behind it and Aune's words both. You aren't going to let it go until I tell you, huh? As expected, Aune shook his head, his face softening when he brushed his hand against Kenji's. Once again, Kenji wasn't sure if he should be glad or worried about how easily Aune could read in him. It had been like this ever since high school. Perhaps even since the first day they met, Kenji wasn't really sure. But there on the outside, one-sided conversations were never as one-sided as they seemed, and he also wasn't the only one who learned to read in his boyfriend's face and body language. It was truly a gift and a curse at the same time, deeming him unable to hide anything from Aune. He sighed in defeat. It's just... you are showing your skin a lot today. Aune furrowed his brow in confusion, and Kenji quickly elaborated. I mean, I have nothing against that. I get that it's hot today and you don't want to sweat in the uniform. It's fine, it just... the guys had a lot of comments today when you were lifting those bags, you know? And you got jealous. He said it so matter-of-factly, Kenji almost laughed. It would be a bitter laugh, though. Sorry. I'm not being fair, am I? It's not like it's your fault. Despite everything, Aune gave him a soft smile before he shifted to sit right next to him and wrapped his arm around his waist. Kenji's pulse quickened, but as always, Aune's presence next to him was fast to calm him down again. He shivered when a kiss landed on his temple. I get jealous too. Huh? Why? Aona's eyes darkened in the way Kenji recalled seeing only about 2 times in the whole time they knew each other when Aona got really mad. His gaze piercing through one of his co-workers who coincidentally quickly looked elsewhere. If looks could kill, Kenji was sure the man would be dead in an instant. I heard him talking about you last week. He was very descriptive with the things he wanted to do to you. Kenji swallowed the remark that Aona sounded more pissed than jealous over that and quickly dug through his memories. Wait, was that on Thursday? Is that the reason you hovered behind me the whole day? Aona grunted in affirmation. Unsure if he should be flattered or concerned, Kenji shook his head and instinctively leaned more into Aona's side. I didn't even know you can get jealous. Of course I can. You are mine. Kenji paused, surprised by the directness, but he would lie if he said hearing Aona say that with so much certainty in his voice didn't make his heart flutter. Leave it to Aona to make him feel better without even trying. Well, you don't have to worry about him. He's an idiot, and not even close to my type. He felt Aona slowly relax to the point of even cracking a small smile when he opened one of the bento boxes and held a piece of chicken in front of Kenji's mouth to eat, which Kenji gladly accepted. What is your type then? Let me think. Big, strong guys with white hair who don't talk much but think a lot, are great cooks, and have a big heart and soft spot for animals. Do you happen to know someone like that? A soft chuckle rumbled through Aona's chest. He pulled Kenji under his chin, nudging the other bento towards him. I sure hope so. They finished their lunches in peaceful silence. Kenji wasn't really in the mood to talk more than he already did, tactically choosing not to ask Aona about his type, and so he just focused on how nice it was to be held in Aona's arms before they inevitably had to get back to work. Yet he found himself in a much better mood than in the morning, even catching himself humming when he studied the blueprints. You seem content. He looked up, grinning when he recognized the man Aona had a silent beef with. Yeah, what can I say? Nobu's cooking has that effect. The man looked around almost nervously at the mention of Aona, and sure enough, Kenji could see his boyfriend burning holes into the man's back from afar. Seems like Nobu's glares are working. Did you need something? Oh, right. I need to check. A loud crash followed by shouting stopped everyone in the middle of what they were doing. Kenji glanced up and froze, seeing one of the lifts used to raise building material had collapsed. But that wasn't the reason why his blood ran cold. He dropped everything he held and rushed to a fallen ladder now lying next to the lift, jumping over the scattered pillars and clay blocks before he could even start to think. Are you okay? Aona waved his hand weakly, which did little to nothing to ease Kenji's worries, especially since Kenji didn't miss the little wince around his eyes, telling him his boyfriend was in pain. What happened? I wasn't paying attention. Gee, on a construction site, and while standing on a ladder? You sure like to live on the edge, huh? Despite his words, Kenji's heart was racing, his hands visibly trembling when he laid them on Aona's shoulders. Are you hurt? I'll drive you to hospital. You could have broken something falling from that height. He fell silent when Aona squeezed his hand, giving him a gentle smile. I'm fine. Are you sure? You shouldn't take this lightly. What if... Kenji. Clenching his jaw, Kenji clapped his mouth shut, heat rising into his face when he realized they had an audience in the form of Aona's co-workers. Sorry, I'm just worried. Aona's face softened. He gave his hand a light squeeze before motioning for him to step back. He got up surprisingly well even without help, but Kenji wasn't fooled. He positioned himself to Aona's side just as his boyfriend wavered, but he stabilized himself even before he would need to lean on Kenji for support. It's fine. What's going on? The lift broke and Aona-san tried to catch it. Cold shivers ran down Kenji's spine with that image, but he kept his mouth shut this time, letting Aona deal with his supervisor on his own. Any injuries? Yes. No. No, Boo. What is it then? No injuries, Yamada-san. Despair bubbled in Kenji's chest, but he couldn't really force Aone to leave his workplace. He embarrassed him enough already. Alright then, but take it lightly for today. The man gave Kenji a quick glance, and Kenji could swear he saw a glimpse of understanding flash over his face. And have yourself check up before the next shift. You have people worried about your health. Everyone else back to work. We are already behind schedule, so move it! The small crowd quickly dissipated. Kenji grabbed Aona's hand before he could go back to his work too, but couldn't find the right words to explain all the swirling emotions in his head. But as always, Aone understood even without words. He gently ruffled Kenji's hair, smiling reassuringly at him. It's fine, no need to worry. Yeah, that's easier said than done. He followed Aone with his gaze, looking for any signs of discomfort, but there was no limp or waver in his walk, and he couldn't see anything of that previous wince on his face even when he started to lift the materials scattered around. Eventually, he decided to trust Aona's judgment and returned to his own work, but he couldn't stop his eyes from occasionally straying to watch his boyfriend on the other side of the construction site. Are you sure this is a good idea after what happened? To Aona's credit, he didn't roll his eyes at Kenji. Not now, nor at any of the 10 times Kenji had asked the same question during the short ride to a nearby gymnasium. They were supposed to meet up with their old Tateko team for a monthly volleyball practice organized by their former captain. Kenji wasn't sure why he agreed to those in the first place, but he suspected Kamasaki's usual yapping had something to do with that. It wasn't that bad to meet up with their former teammates, of course. He even found himself being glad he could meet with the overgrown child Kogane on one occasion. But that was under normal circumstances. You should go to a doctor, not play volleyball. We should have just called and we won't come this time. Kamasaki-san wouldn't be pleased. Kenji paused at the mention of his former senpai, but then just shook his head in dismissal. Screw Kamasaki. I can make it through another one of his stupid lectures. Your health is more important. He stopped when Aone wrapped his arms around him from behind, dwarfing him despite his own more than average height. Though he would enjoy it much more if it wasn't for the sour feeling in the back of his throat. He didn't want to tell Aone what he could and couldn't do, but this was different. Are you that worried about me? Kenji clicked his tongue, lightly offended, still severely worried. Of course I am. How high were you when you fell? Almost 3 meters? That can seriously mess one up, you know? Even though you look fine and you know better than anyone how you feel, I would really like to avoid a I told you so moment. Kenji. What? I can be worried about you too. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? A short squeal escaped his mouth when Aone turned him around and tightened the embrace around him before kissing him. I don't like seeing you frowning so much. That's what I meant. What does that have to do with anything? Hey, you two lovebirds, are you coming in or what? Kenji rolled his eyes, already annoyed just by hearing Kamasaki's voice. Aone gently pinched his cheek, leaving a kiss on the same spot before tugging on his hand. Sighing, Kenji followed after him inside the gymnasium, a bad feeling settling in his stomach. Futakuchi-senpai, your head isn't in the game today, is it? Narrowing his eyes at Kogane, Kenji slumped on the bench, taking a much-needed sip from his bottle. A bit of respect, Kogane, would you? He cringed when he heard Kamasaki's barked laugh. You are the one to talk. Besides, the kid is right. Come on, Futakuchi, focus. We are here to play, not lazy around. Kenji rolled his eyes, making a point of ostentatiously ignoring his former unfortunately senpai. As if he didn't know it himself that he was somewhere else with his mind. He almost got hit in the face with the ball just a few minutes ago because he wasn't focused on the game, but rather on watching his boyfriend. And not for the same reason he usually did. He slowly started to feel like a madman, looking for something that wasn't really there. Aone seemed fine, moving like he normally would if the fall didn't happen. He wasn't even short of breath yet, while Kenji was already gasping for more oxygen. And yet, he couldn't shake off the bad feeling from before, no matter how much he tried not to act on it. Aone had to notice it, because of course he did, and occasionally shot Kenji a concerned glance, which was honestly really ironic. Kenji was the one supposed to be concerned, not the other way around. He shook his head in a fruitless attempt to shoo those thoughts away and got up to continue in the set. This time, his attention got divided among Aone, the game, and Kogane clowning around like he usually did. Where that guy took all the energy was absolutely beyond him, but at that moment, he couldn't bring himself to envy him. Kenji! He snapped back into the game, hurriedly stepping back to make a receive before the ball could hit him in the face. It was a horrible one, and he clenched his jaw when the ball returned over the net. Damn it! He could just watch from the backline when Aone went to block the direct spike and get ready for another receive. A split second later, Kogane flew into the block from the side, yelling out some strange battle cry as he somewhat completed the block. The ball hit his hand and then the floor. However, inertia also carried him too into the side and into Aone. Several tumbles echoed through the gymnasium as their legs hit the floor. But over all of that sounded a sickening crack, followed shortly by a pained cry. Kenji was moving even before Aone fell on the floor, his heart almost stopping on the spot. What hurts? Aone didn't answer, his face scrunched in pain like never before. But he didn't have to say anything anyway. Kenji's breath hitched in his throat, his stomach turning when his gaze fell on Aone's ankle, now twisted into a very wrong angle with the bone almost poking through his skin. Oh shit. Aone-san, are you okay? Another tall body hit the floor, though this time with the intention to kneel down. I'm sorry, Aone-san, I didn't. Kenji gritted his teeth and smacked Kogane's hand away. You go away! You've done enough damage already. But what? It's your fault. If you didn't... Kenji! Kenji flinched. But... Enough! He shut up when Aone raised his eyebrow at him, dread pooling in his stomach when he noticed how Aone's eyes darkened. So much for not showing himself as the absolutely horrible person he was in front of Aone. Though he would be more surprised if Aone didn't know that already. He looked away, unable to hold Aone's glare any longer. Sorry. It's not his fault. I know. He looked up at Kogane. Sorry, that wasn't fair. Deep down, he was worried Kogane might be too upset, but the ever-so-cheerful kid just smiled at him with one of his usual derpy smiles. It's alright, Futakuchi-senpai, I understand. I would react the same way if anyone hurt too. Not that I want to interrupt you, but I think this needs to go to a hospital. Kenji nodded, pushing his own fear into the back of his mind for now, and got up. I'll drive. You? I didn't even know you can. I have a license, I just don't drive often. He ignored the surprised gazes, especially one in particular, and motioned for Kamasaki and Kogane to lend a hand. He rushed outside to get their car, feeling his hands trembling when he laid them on the steering wheel. It's fine. Deep breaths. It's fine. His chest constricted with every little wince on Aone's face as the two carefully helped him onto the passenger seat. They had no way of stabilizing the bones, but Kenji didn't intend to drive fast anyway, so the road bumps weren't going to be a problem. Hopefully. Good luck, you two. Kenji just humped absent-mindedly, fully focused on the steering wheel and pedals. The car fell into a tense silence as soon as they got on the road. Aone didn't say anything, and Kenji wasn't in a talking mood either. He felt Aone's eyes on him from time to time, but he couldn't tell what the man was thinking, which just made him panic more. You didn't tell me you have a license. Kenji almost jumped, despite Aone's voice being as soft as usual. He clutched the steering wheel to the point of his knuckles turning white. Yeah, I just got it last week. I thought it might be a good time. So you wouldn't have to bother with driving me everywhere all the time. From the corner of his eye, he could see Aone's eyebrows knitting together and cringed inwardly. This wasn't how he imagined him revealing he made it through driving school would go. Alas, here they were. But don't worry, I still remember everything from the practice rides. And I'll get better in the future, for sure. He wished his voice didn't come out as pathetic as it did, but in the end, he supposed it was on par with his character. Clenching his jaw, he desperately tried to stay composed, at least for the sake of not crashing the car because he couldn't see on the road. He more felt than saw Aone reaching for him, but then his hand stayed hovering in the air before falling into his lap. Kenji... Oh hey, we are here already. He switched on the turn signal, turning towards the hospital parking lot. He helped Aone hop inside the emergency waiting room, thanking all deities there weren't any people waiting and they were taken in almost immediately. He had to look away when the doctor started to adjust Aone's ankle into the correct position, the cracking of bones being a bit too much for him on its own. They were chased around the hospital wing several times to get x-rays done after every adjustment, before the doctor finally seemed satisfied with the position. Kenji stayed by Aone's side the whole time, though he wasn't sure if his presence was offering any sort of comfort. But he would feel much worse if he left. At last, they stayed alone in the room when the doctor went to look for a wheelchair sturdy enough to carry a person of Aone's weight. Kenji busied himself with exploring the various equipment around, feeling like the worst coward in the world. But he couldn't bring himself to face Aone's anger. Not yet. Kenji. He froze, a dull ache in his chest constricting his breathing. Kenji, look at me. Hesitantly, he did what Aone told him, a shiver running through his skin when Aone touched his hand. Nobu, I'm not mad at you. Kenji almost laughed. He didn't even wonder how Aone managed to read that. It didn't change anything anyway. Why? You have all reasons to be. No, I don't. I'm sorry I yelled at you. You didn't deserve that. Of course I did. It's fine. No, it's not. You wouldn't be scared of my touch if it was. He let out a soft sigh and gently tucked Kenji towards himself. I'm sorry. Kenji just shook his head, unable to find his voice. What could he say anyway? You didn't ask me about my type. Huh? He blinked in surprise, raising his eyes to meet with Aone's that were now watching him with the usual tender light in them. You told me about your type. You didn't ask about mine. And for a good reason. He didn't need to know in how many departments he was lacking, since it was bound to be quite a lot. And yet, he couldn't stop himself. Then, what's your type? A soft smile curled Aone's lips. Tall, really pretty with big brown eyes and soft features. Has a thing for dramatic series. A gentle soul that's maybe a little cheeky, but really kind and caring deep down. Would you happen to know someone like that? Kenji bit hard on his lip, trying to hide how much it started to quiver as his vision blurred. You forgot annoying and stupid. Strong arms sneaked around his waist, pulling him forward. Now, that would rule you out. Kenji instinctively leaned into the warm touch when Aone brushed his thumbs under his eyes, letting him know he didn't manage to get a hold of his emotions in time. He let himself get pulled even closer, clinging to Aune for dear life while trying in vain to stop the jerky movement of his shoulders. You know, I didn't hear you talk so much since last year. It was a dumb thing to say, but the soft laugh bubbling in Aune's throat was enough to chase the dark shadow from his soul away. It needed to be said. He tightened his grip a bit. Don't underestimate yourself so much. I wouldn't be with you if I didn't love you the way you are. Please remember that. More tears rolled down Kenji's cheeks. Okay, I'll try.